John, you mentioned to me that you've been going door to door on your scooter. How's that been received, and what are the people in your district telling you?
Well, first of all, the scooter was my wife's idea, and I thought it was kind of silly, but it works.
Democratic Visions is produced by volunteers for DFL Senate District 42.
The residents of North Minnetonka and South Plymouth who reside in House District 43B are fortunate to have John Benson serving as their representative over in St. Paul. John and his wife Barbara have lived in Minnetonka for more than 30 years, and John is recently retired from the classroom, having served 34 years in the Edina school system. John, welcome to Democratic Visions.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Now, I know that along the way you've picked up some awards, and I want to touch briefly on those. Is it not true that you received Teacher of the Year back in 1997?
Well, yes, I did, but you know, I really was a stand-in for all kinds of great teachers who never get recognition. So
standing on their shoulders, I understand.
That's how I saw it.
I know also that you received an award from Conservation Minnesota. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Well, Conservation Minnesota has endorsed me again, as they did each time I ran.
You're seeking your third term,
My
is that
third
correct?
term, and I'm proud to say I've, according to them, 100% environmental voting record. Those issues that Conservation Minnesota supports, and Clean Water Action and others, are very pragmatic, straightforward conservation proposals, and they are ones that are going to really move our state forward in renewable energy and conservation.
John, you mentioned to me that you've been going door to door on your scooter. How's that been received, and what are the people in your district telling you?
Well, first of all, the scooter was my wife's idea, and I thought it was kind of silly, but it works. I'm able to get to these houses much more quickly, and people at the door think it's kind of fun. But as far as the voters are concerned, they are still interested in the same issues they were before, which is basically let's make sure our schools are adequately funded. Let's see that we have adequate police and fire, and that the road and the potholes get filled, and that we have a transportation system that meets the needs of not only commuters but also industry and business here in our state.
What committees do you serve on over at the legislature?
Well, I serve on a number of them. I serve on both the education committees in the House. I'm vice chair of the Finance Committee for the entire Minnesota House.
Wow.
And then I serve on a committee called Affordable Housing and Affordable Health Care. And also I participate in a bipartisan small business caucus. And we developed 8 bills this last session, 7 of which the governor signed into law.
Well, I know that you are a big proponent of getting Minnesota to qualify for the Race to the Top funding. What happened along the way?
Well, it's a long story, and it involves a lot of turf protection and fighting, I think.
And maybe we should just back up. Race to the Top funding were federal grants that were offered to states based upon applications that the states submitted, but they had to satisfy certain criteria. In broad brush, is that it?
And among those criteria, that was the stumbling block, had to do with alternative pathways, as they're called, for a teacher performance and evaluation.
Now, you're a former teacher.
Yes.
And Education Minnesota weighed in heavily on that issue. What was your reaction to their position?
Well, Education Minnesota and I did not see eye to eye on that. And I believed that if the districts had trouble filling a position, or if they thought Teach for America would be something that might be useful on the short term, as long as the teachers had a say in that, I felt it was okay to go forward. Besides, those kinds of changes can't take place unless the people in the classroom are going to cooperate and go along with it, because education is a group activity, cooperative activity. And so even though Education Minnesota was irked by my support of that, in my opinion, kids come first. And the numbers, by the way, who might have been recruited through Teach for America were very, very small. We're talking maybe 20 for the entire state. You ought to know, by the way, I was a chief author of a bill to pull Minnesota out of No Child Left Behind. I don't know if you want to call me a conservative or what, but to me, schools are best if the local community runs them. The whole process of financing the public schools, by the way, is grossly out of date. It's the same thing that's been going on. It's been gerrymandered and add-ons and takeoffs. In fact, someone told me in my first year in the legislature, if you could ever understand school finance, you would be a genius. You'll never will. So I'm supporting a bill called Minnesota Miracle 2,
Okay.
which is a revamping of the entire way that we fund schools based on the numbers of students. It would be a big boon, really, not only for our districts, but for many of the districts in greater Minnesota that
Well,
are
tell me,
really, really
how would
hurting.
it benefit the suburban districts?
Well, it gives the suburban districts a greater opportunity to raise funds, but mostly what it does, it would relieve a lot of the pressure on home taxation. So one of my issues next time will be how can we control and reduce property taxes, because they are not really based on ability to pay. And now with people's property dropping in value and they're finding it more difficult even to sell the property, this is becoming an enormous burden. And as some have been claiming that they have been running the state with no new taxes, what's really happened is we've been shifting the weight of taxation onto local property tax. It's gone up over 70% in the last 8 years.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have occasion to vote on the proposal to increase state income taxes?
Yes, I did. And here again, I probably will run into some problem with my Democratic colleagues. I'm what we call Keynesian. John Maynard Keynes was the fellow who convinced Roosevelt that if you pump prime in the economy, we can get out of this depression or recession more quickly. His argument was then when we get into good times, we pay it all back. That part politicians never want to do. They're all good at cutting taxes.
Yeah.
But, so I voted no, along with a number of other Democrats. I think there were 12 of us who voted no on that. But I was a strong supporter of the bonding bill because that is stimulative. We can borrow money now here in the state for 2-3% interest. The bids are coming in at 30-40% under estimates. We're getting a tremendously good deal on this. I wish the bonding bill had been larger. We have a AAA bonding rate. The state has a very low debt load. We're down in the bottom quarter of all the states. We certainly ought to take this advantage since we've gone 8-10 years being very stingy on keeping up our roads and bridges. There's a lot of skepticism in the society as to whether the state government is spending its money as wisely as possible. Over the last 8 years, we've reduced the state employee workforce by almost a third. We have made major reductions and efficiencies, but a lot of people are not aware of that.
Anecdotally, they think that state government is out of
They
control.
think it's out of control and it's growing larger.
And which is apparently contrary to the facts.
It's contrary to the facts.
John, here's my perception. I know that you're an ardent Democrat, but I'm pleased to see that you're not walking in lockstep with the party and that you're making principled decisions. John, thanks for stopping by.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Democratic Visions is produced by volunteers for DFL Senate District 42. Norbert Gurnis, Chair. Democratic Visions can also be seen on our website, dflsd42.org.